Trump effect makes federal police execute 93 warrants and leaves drug traffickers in panic this Wednesday morning, July 8, 2026. Because the pressure against the gangs has entered a phase where crime is no longer treated just as a problem of alleys, drug spots, and prisons.
We need to take our hats off to the Americans. For the following reason, there are already 2 individual taxpayer IDs sanctioned and 4 corporate taxpayer IDs, 3 in Brazil, in Portugal, right? When we talk about this first move by the United States, sanctioning 2 individual taxpayer IDs and 4 corporate taxpayer IDs, they start working from a framework, which is what we aim for, what we desire. Look, and going after the corporate taxpayer ID of a company that is used to launder money, that is used to move the money around. Making everything that is produced from trafficking, from, everything we know these guys are capable of doing, that's what we want.
The federal police put the Ficos on the streets in a nationwide offensive against criminal organizations, drug trafficking, arms trafficking, money laundering, and other crimes. The official update recorded simultaneous actions in 16 states with 19 integrated forces and 93 arrest warrants. After the Trump administration classified the PCC and Comando Vermelho as terrorist organizations, and after the U.S. Treasury sanctioned Brazilians and companies identified as part of a network linked to the PCC. Any operation against the faction in Brazil appears as concrete pressure on those who launder money, run companies, use digital payments, crypto assets, shell companies, and connections outside Brazil, all to fuel crime. Did the federal police decide to act out of conviction or because of pressure? Because the target still seems small compared to the big money involved. How is the system going to explain that? That the United States blocks assets while the Brazilian justice system releases suspects. I'll tell you all about it in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward and no-nonsense content, consider subscribing, because we have videos like this every day. Operation Integrated Force 3 was launched by the Ficos, structures coordinated by the federal police that bring together federal, civil, military, penal, and federal highway police officers, security departments, municipal guards, and the National Secretariat for Penal Policies. The operation is taking place simultaneously in cities such as Campinas, Santos, Ilhéus, Natal, Mossoró, Teresina, João Pessoa, Belém, and other regions affected by different investigations, all connected to the same problem. Factions that spread, make money circulate, buy weapons, dominate territory, and try to turn fear into power. The declared target of Operation Coordinated Structures brings together suspects investigated for criminal organization, drug trafficking, arms trafficking, money laundering, homicides, cargo theft, receiving stolen goods, and other crimes. In Minas Gerais, one front investigates trafficking, homicides, and illegal weapons possession. In Pará and Paraíba, the operation targets criminal organizations. In Paraíba, the investigation focuses on gangs, trafficking, and money laundering in Rio Grande do Norte. The measures include freezing and seizing assets in an investigation related to trafficking and money laundering. In São Paulo, there are efforts against cargo theft, truck theft, and receiving stolen goods. That's where the Trump effect comes in. Pressure from the United States shifted the focus. Before, the debate was stuck on the word faction, as if the problem was only about local security. Now PCC and Comando Vermelho have come on the US radar as terrorist organizations.
But the police can't just stop, act, and arrest. No, they're not willing to take risks and arrest, and then the courts release them. Because we don't have laws and regulations to make these arrests justified. That when he puts his life at risk, there is also justification for it. And then we get to what we've been facing in the National Congress for 40 years. 40 years. And that's not an exaggeration. That's the point, right? Which brings us to the period of Brazil's redemocratization. Under Sarney, they got the following idea. Let's loosen the laws, let's make crime easier, and the rest will build, create Carandiru da Vida, strengthen the CV, which already existed in Rio with the Red Phalanx. Well, we keep enjoying life and strengthening crime.
The Trump administration put Brazilian crime in a tougher category. The Victor Shimada and Stella Stephen case clearly showed this shift. The United States Treasury sanctioned 2 Brazilians, 3 companies in Brazil, and 1 company in Portugal for alleged ties to a money laundering network linked to the PCC. The federal police carried out Operation Exchange after the American sanctions. Stella Stephen was even arrested, and Victor Shimada went on the run. The federal police themselves complained that the United States announcement may have tipped off the suspects and hindered their capture.
The Director General of the Federal Police, André Rodriguez, denied that Vitor Henrique de Oliveira Shimada and Estela Stephanie Nunes Henrique have any ties to the Primero Comando da Capital, contrary to the American government's claims. Stella Stephanie Nunes Henrique de Oliveira, according to federal police information,
is already under arrest, and the other sanctioned individual is currently a fugitive, considered to be on the run. According to federal police information, she is already under arrest, and the other sanctioned individual is currently a fugitive, considered to be on the run. Federal police are investigating money laundering. The counting of that money is still underway. The case is ongoing, so the total amount seized is unknown. This is happening right now, but there are already connections with what was seized in total. This is happening at this moment, but we already have the first images from the allegations of the American government.
But this complaint reveals something else. Washington changed the timing of the Brazilian system. What used to move at its own internal pace now faces external pressure, international visibility, and real financial risk. The contrast came right after. The court ordered the release of 6 people investigated in Operation Exchange, including Estella and Stephanie, because the temporary detention ended without being converted into preventive detention. Meanwhile, Vito Shimada and Igor Foucault, Joaquim Savioli, and Amori Henrique de Oliveira became the target of preventive detention because they remained fugitives. For anyone looking in from the outside, the picture is grim. The United States blocks assets, targets companies, cuts access to the financial system, and treats the PCC as a transnational threat. In Brazil, part of the system still gets bogged down in warrants, releases, appeals, deadlines, and hearings.
That's right. The court ordered the release of 7 people who had been arrested in Operation Exchange by the federal police last week, which is an operation that investigates money laundering from international drug trafficking. And among these 7 people who will be released is Estela Stephanie de Oliveira, who is that Brazilian woman who, as you rightly mentioned, was sanctioned by the United States for her alleged involvement with the faction, the criminal organization First Command of the Capital, the PCC. All these suspects were placed in temporary detention, which lasts for 5 days. And at the end of this period, the police asked the court to convert these detentions into preventive detention, which are those that have no set end date. But for these 7 people, the court denied this request because it said they were only arrested to enable the execution of search and seizure warrants, so that the police could investigate mobile devices and documents there without any evidence being destroyed. And since this could be done and no new evidence was presented linking these 7 people to this scheme, the court ordered the release of these 7 people. Now, for the other 6 suspects, because there were 13 arrest warrants in total, the court did accept the request for preventive detention. And in fact, 3 of them haven't even been found by the police yet. They remain fugitives, but pre-trial detention was ordered for them.
This is the point that irritates ordinary citizens the most. There's no point in selling a big operation as the final solution when crime operates with a parallel economy. On the same day, another move raised the political temperature. The federal police carried out a search and seizure at Jair Bolsonaro's house in Brasilia under an order related to the search for weapons, ammunition, accessories, and documents. The former president's defense stated that nothing was found and that the authorities had already been informed about the location of the weapons. Flavio Bolsonaro reacted by saying that the action was embarrassing, that they turned everything upside down, and that the operation seemed like a smokescreen at a time when he is working in the United States on issues related to Brazil.
President Bolsonaro just was the target of another search and seizure this morning. Yeah, I'll repeat. President Bolsonaro just was the target of another search and seizure this morning. In my view, this is a clear attempt to create a smokescreen right now while I'm here. Working for Brazil, trying to split the news cycle with negative stories, right?
Flavio's statement connects two news stories happening at the same time. On one side, the federal police are shown executing warrants against organized crime. On the other side, the same federal police enter Bolsonaro's house in an operation that, according to the defense, ended without any significant items being seized.
The federal police are currently conducting an operation at the former president's house. Federal police operation at Jair Bolsonaro's house, and the reason is the search for weapons. However, up to this moment, and the official information we have is that nothing was found. The operation then took place this morning, Wednesday, July 8, 2026. The police, therefore, went to the former president of the Republic's house, which is located inside a gated community in Brasilia. They went there to conduct a sweep, searching for any other possible weapons. And remember, we've been following this as well in the last few days, right? The rule about having to return some weapons. This issue started when weeks ago, during a police checkpoint, a weapon was found with a security guard. And that weapon was registered to the former president of the Republic, and then everything started to escalate around this issue of firearms.
When American pressure against crime increases, and when Flavio tries to capitalize on this agenda in Washington, an operation against Bolsonaro emerges. To share the headlines and put a negative issue at the center of the debate, Lula's government gets squeezed in this dispute. Itamaraty tried to say that classifying the PCC and Comando Vermelho as terrorist organizations could create the risk of US military action on Brazilian territory. The American response was blunt. The State Department called the hypothesis absurd and stated that the measures are meant to combat narco-terrorists who also operate within the United States. The attempt to turn a sanction against the faction into a fear of invasion sounded like a poor defense at the wrong time. When the foreign power needs to label PCC and Comando Vermelho as terrorist organizations for the issue to move forward, the country's internal weakness is exposed. Brazil should be leading this fight, but the ones who actually showed up with real financial pressure were the United States. The operation of the FICs can arrest key targets, seize documents, map out structures, and open new fronts. That matters. But the question that remains isn't about the size of the announcement. It's about the depth of the cut. If the operation only targets replaceable operators, the faction just swaps out pieces. The real fear of the traffickers isn't in the warrant that shows up on TV. It's in the account being blocked, the loss of property, the freezing of the company, the dismantling of the financial network, and the certainty that dirty money won't turn into a comfortable life. American pressure created an opening. The federal police took action. The Brazilian justice system has once again shown its slowness and its loopholes. Thank you very much for watching this video until the end. Support our project and contribute financially through the Pix key that appears on your screen. We are an independent channel, focused on keeping you informed with the facts. Your contribution helps us stay on our feet.